Hi, this is Richard. I'm here with Bill Trentley. Bill has written another book. His first book, The World Is Around You, But You're in Your Car, was published 2 years ago.
2 years ago, yeah.
And he just published a new book called Snapshot, Ship's Dentist. And this is, your first book was a work of fiction, but this one is a true account of your time in the Navy, isn't that right?
Correct.
So, did you keep a journal of your time in the Navy? Because you have a lot of very specific dates and information in here.
Yeah, no journal, but a calendar book. I would just write a couple words for each date. And if I had to elaborate on those, expand those, I'd write scrap notes off to the side and just throw them in a box or something. I also had VHS tapes that home videos that I got from other people.
And had the dates on the videotape on the
right? Yeah, exactly.
Because you have a real detailed account of your time in the Navy as a dentist.
Right.
And tell me a little bit about your time aboard a ship.
Well, I was 2 years aboard that ship.
And what ship was that?
That was the USS Kennedy.
Okay, aircraft carrier.
Exactly. Yes. Yeah, the world's largest conventionally powered aircraft carrier.
When you say conventionally powered, you mean
non-nuclear.
Right, okay. Yeah. All right. And tell me a little bit about your experience as a dentist on board one of these ships. Like, how many people are on board? How many?
Yeah, we had over 5,000 people aboard the ship, and 4 dentists. And the second year that I was aboard, they changed the policy and they said we'll have 5 dentists aboard all aircraft carriers, and so that was a big significant change there.
So in addition to your dental duties, you also were a big part of the medical crew, like for triage, for any medical emergencies and things.
Right. If there was ever a mass casualty situation, we had a certain things that we had to do. We had to augment the medical department, help them out if doing IVs or whatever needed to be done. And we also had general quarters battle stations. They called them battle dressing stations. And mine that I was in had about 5 or 6 people that would always come there during general quarters. And it was located at the back of the ship, stern.
The stern of the ship, yeah. It's a really fascinating tale of the military experience. I work in the dental field, but I'm not really that familiar with dental terminology and things like that. Like, for example, you talk about a frigate, and I thought that was a completely different thing than what it is. But tell me a little bit, like, during you were on board the ship during the last years of the Reagan presidency, which, the end of the Cold War and all that. It's a pretty interesting time to be on board this ship. I want to read a passage here. You spent some time in the Mediterranean. And I read this paragraph, and I just thought this was great. It says, in addition to the organized tours, I explored Antalya on my own. Walking down the main boulevard, I arrived at a park where I sat at the precipice of a cliff overlooking the bay. I gazed in wonder for a considerable time at the most remarkable view of the USS Kennedy anchored in the clear blue waters, the magnificent Taurus Mountains serving as a backdrop. Pines lined the cliff. The mountains seemed painted in varying shades of gray, the effect of shattering as the sun gradually set, creating a spectacular visual effect on the individual mountain peaks that seemed compressed together. The park's surroundings were peaceful and serene. For a few minutes, the prayers of a muezzin could be heard emanating from a nearby mosque. That's quite a bit of writing there. It really paints quite a picture when you're on land looking out at the sea and to see the USS Kennedy out there in the water from far away.
And that was the picture actually from that precipice. Yeah,
is that right?
That was the picture on the cover of the book.
I swear I didn't know that. But I pictured that it sort of must have looked something like that.
Yeah, yeah. And to hear the prayers of that the Muslim person, it was really interesting. Very different.
It's pretty cool. You have a lot of you elaborate on a lot of the general day-to-day work in the dental office. You work some pretty long hours from morning until bedtime, basically, with a little lunch break here and there. But you do talk about your time ashore, your shore leave, and what a great place to be, the Mediterranean. Some of these places you went to see over there, and of course back then that was at a time when the Navy, U.S. Navy, was the most powerful thing in the world. I mean, compared to almost any other nation, I guess. So,
yeah.
Tell me a little more about the experience on board in addition to dental work. Tell me about some of the other experiences, like with the
some of the other duties that we had to do. Yeah. For example, I was in charge of the safety, so there were a lot of things you had to do with that. And then there was the supply system. You had to order the supplies and maintain the supplies. The gold board. There were a bunch of us that had to make sure that the precious metals were accounted for. And then there was the drug board. We worked with some of the medical people, and we had to also make sure that the drugs were accounted for. And division officer was another duty that I had. The second year I was on there, and that's where you're dealing with personnel issues. If somebody had to be brought before the captain for captain's mast, you had to represent them and prepare all the paperwork. And
so you had a lot of extensive duties as a naval officer, and also in the book you have a really fascinating history of dentistry in the Navy, which I really had no idea how it all came about, and you cover a lot of the historical elements of that, which is just great, and for anybody who's in the military, anybody who's in the dental field, anybody who's in both. I mean, this is just a great read. It's a great story. It's a true account of your time in the military. You spent 4 years active duty. You were, in addition to being on the USS Kennedy, you also spent some time in port, in the dental clinics there as well. And you really... You paint some very humorous stories here, and some very serious times. You talk about the real dangers on board, people that were killed. Even the difficulty of having to climb off the boat into a smaller boat in order to get to shore. Just the whole adventure of it all. It just sounds like it's a great book, and it's available at Barnes & Noble, is that right?
Right, and Amazon.com.
Amazon.com, and do you have a Facebook page for?
There's a Facebook page
for Snapshot Ship's Dentist.
Well, it's on a
under Bill Trentley.
On the World Is Around You.
The World Is Around You, but you're in your car.
Well, first book, yeah.
Bill Trentley has written his second book. I highly recommend it, and thank you for being with me.
Well, thank you. Thank you very much.
Can you sign my book?
Sure.
Thank you.
Okay.